and I'm so excited for you all to be joining me today for another wonderful episode of the Mindset Michelle TV show. And I'm so excited with today's guest, somebody that I've known for a number of years now and seen grow and expand and develop, not just as a human being, but as a fabulous person out there in the community doing amazing things and also building a stronger and bigger and better business every time I've spoken to him. So I'm so pleased and so honoured today that today's guest is Ziggy. Now, Ziggy will explain to us a little bit more about his name as well, just so that we can understand, okay, it's not Twiggy, it's Ziggy.
No, it's not Twiggy. Although I wouldn't mind having the wealth of Twiggy or even a tenth of it. But
That's it.
well, the name, my birth name is actually Pandelis Tsiglopoulos.
Wow.
Correct. So Ziggy is not my real name. Peter Ziggy is not my real name. But everyone calls me Ziggy because in year 7 at Braybrook High, Dean, who couldn't pronounce, as most of the kids back then couldn't pronounce my surname, said, "Mate, what's your name?" And I said, "Pandelis Tsiglopoulos." And he said, "Pandelis." Forget that. He used another F word. Forget that. You're Ziggy. So that stuck. So everyone called me Ziggy. So feel free to call me Ziggy.
Well, it's funny, those nicknames. I was actually called Chook, which doesn't have anything to do with Michelle when I was much younger, and Mitch and Mish and all of those. But Chook was always one of my favourites, and it's a bit like Ziggy. It just kind of stuck for a little while.
It's Australia, Michelle. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just whatever anyone thinks they'll give you a name. I mean, why do we call someone that's red bluey? It just doesn't make sense. But that's what I love about Australia.
Yeah, that whole cheekiness that really comes across. So Peter, for those that aren't aware of him, runs a company called 3P Corporation, and they are into wealth creation in a number of different areas. And he's also the award-winning author of a book called Money Doesn't Grow on Trees.
Does grow on trees.
Grow. It doesn't.
Doesn't grow on trees would be something our parents will tell us.
That's it. It does grow on trees, that's right. So Ziggy, I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about your background story. Do you want to share with people a little bit how you came to moving even from doesn't to does money grow on trees?
Yeah, look, it's my background is in accounting and tax, and I did that for many years, and then I slowly moved into financial planning, which is where I really believed I could add value to clients and their scenarios, and I really enjoyed that real personal contact. I really enjoyed the thought initially of being able to help them holistically in their finances. Accounting and tax is one area; it's a key area. But to be able to talk to them about their goals and objectives for me, was just the thought of that initially was like, oh wow, I'd love to be able to do that. And so, I did that. I'm doing that. I still love doing that. And so moving into financial planning, however, I found that it was completely different to accounting and tax, and so did that for many years. And as I said, I've still been doing that. And what happened was I went through a period of just a tough time, like we all do, right? And went through a tough time. It was about 10, 11 years ago. And just stuff was going on in my life. We'd need a bottle of scotch just to get through it. Long story short, as a result of that, and as a result of that time of that really, really difficult space where it got so tough that the kids were younger then, right? I almost concluded that the family was better off without me, and that's a scary, scary place to be. And I almost concluded that obviously I'm glad I didn't. But I got to a point where it was, it was a whole personal, whole change of being. It was a very spiritual experience where, and again, that's another whole topic we can go into, but it was purposeful because I realized at that time and during that time that I was made to actually do more and to be more, and that what I was going through was actually part of the purpose that I was designed to be. And so that put me on a journey. They put me on a journey of finding my purpose, put me on a journey of saying, okay, well, what is it? Let me do something with my life. Let me be a better husband, a better father, a better advisor, a better person. And so what does that look like? So that sort of began result 3P was born, which is the name of our business. And the 3Ps stand for, we have a passion for people to prosper in all areas of their life. And naturally, given my accounting and tax background, we start with all the finances. And the finances are about, obviously, accounting and tax, financial planning, loans, property. We've just started a legal practice, this year. And so I'm gearing up the business now as the CEO, and I still do day-to-day financial planning, which I enjoy, but I'm gearing up the business over the next 3 to 5 years to be able to help clients in the other two areas. So I really believe wealth is about unlocking three things. And so those three things are obviously your finances, so getting your finances as good as possible, aiming to be financially independent. Second one is relationships, having great relationships with family and friends and others. And then the third one is a healthy living, a healthy lifestyle, which I'm still being challenged on right now. So I believe if you get those three areas as good as possible, because they're never going to be perfect and there's always going to be something that comes up, you're minimizing the risk of something going wrong. And so I think if you work on those three areas, that to me, that really unlocks wealth. And then the next thing it unlocks is obviously opens up the discussion to be able to talk about your purpose and your spiritual journey and sort of what that looks like. And so that's led to where it is today. So 3P is is a holistic, it's a multidisciplinary business now, and it's expanding and growing, and there's all the difficulties involved with that as you grow, and it's the last 8 years, because it started 1st of July 2013. The last 8 years, there's been times, Michelle, where I was almost giving up. It was just like, this is just hard. But you know what? I always would go back to that time of depression, that time of, say, finding my purpose and saying, no, there's a purpose to what I'm doing. And if I don't do it, then something will be missing in me, and certainly something will be missing in so many others that I have the honor of being able to impact.
Wow, and thank you so much for sharing such a deep and profound journey that you went through there, Ziggy. I really get the sense of, for anybody to get to that point where, there's having those types of thoughts is quite a deeply profound place to get to.
Yeah, and it was also, Michelle, I guess a bit harder for me, even because I've always been an outgoing type character. And so, to actually feel down, and certainly I was on the inside, not many people, knew, but to actually feel that, it was like, that's not me. What is the matter? How do I fix this? And I remember, on one of the nights, there was no one that I wanted to tell. It was just, my wife, Katina, knew, and she was an amazing support. Like, where would I be without her? And, it was just one night where I just remember calling my brother, who's a doctor, and I just said, I think I'm depressed. I'm bawling my eyes out. I need help. And, when you're in that situation, you actually don't want to reach out for help. It's the last thing you want to do, because you don't want to talk to anyone. You don't want to see anyone. You just want to sleep. You just want to forget about the world. You just want to. So it's a hard thing to do, but it's also an important step. So it's not something that we talk about, particularly us guys. We just don't talk about these things. And so I think that one of the things that has been good for me is to be able to share where possible, so that others could can benefit as well, and at least it opens up the discussion.
And I really applaud you, and for exactly that reason, that for a gentleman, for somebody to open up and say, I was in this quite difficult place, but out of that came this knowing of why I'm here, came this sense of purpose, came this and in that deep level of sense of purpose, the sort of knowing that then when things got tough again over the next 8 years, like you said, you knew it wasn't where you've been before, it was tough still. And you also knew that out of that Thomas More talks about it in terms of a wonderful book called The Dark Night of the Soul. And it's very much that soul spiritual journey that some people get to go through in a very conscious way as well, which is what I hear you describing, where they're aware that, everything around them is falling apart and they don't have that energy, the motivation, anything. And it really comes to that question of what am I here for?
I think we need to stay encouraged as well because, we're always, we've got these sort of grandiose plans or things that we're aiming for. And it's like sometimes we feel like, oh, we're not getting there, we're going the wrong way, And I think that I always go back to something that I heard a few years ago, which is I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be either. And I just thought that's pretty cool. So I'm progressing. Could be slowly sometimes, but I'm progressing.
Well, and for me, when I'm working with people, it's around helping them to understand that human condition. So whether you go through a profound experience like yourself, or like you're saying, in an everyday sense, this is really hard, or I'm struggling with this, knowing the times to reach out and get help and knowing what to do to support yourself when going through that, to keep that focus on, yes, reframing that you're one step closer to where you want to be today, and tomorrow will be another step and another step and another step. So this has been a really lovely way of getting to what would you call success for you now, Elza?
Yeah, success. Look, that's an interesting one. I mean, we all know what the general world would call success and the media and everything that it sort of tries to portray on us. But I'm fortunate that I've got my grandfather and my parents who were Greek migrants to sort of go back to. And my grandfather, passed away at the age of 92 with kids, with grandkids, with great-grandkids, but not a cent to his name. He was living, I grew up with him, he was living with my mum and dad, even, till he passed away and I'd move on and got married. But he was successful because he came out to Australia and the aim was for his kids and my parents as well wanted their kids to have a better life. And so mum and dad, came out they were, 20, I think 19, 20. And it was a typical migrant story, It was just a one suitcase, not a cent to their name, and just began working and raised a family. And so success for them, which I try to translate. Now, I don't think it's about sort of going back to, getting to the end of your life and not having a cent to your name. I don't think that's what it's about. But we're able to stand on the shoulders of our grandparents and parents and be able to say, okay, well, I can now take this a bit further, but not forget the principles of what success means. And so, it was very much about family. Family was key. Food was key, right? But that comes into the family gatherings. Relationships were key. Finances were obviously very important because that's a big part of it. But interestingly, it came in probably third because family, and relationships, were first. Healthy living was probably second, and then finances was just sort of, well, we need finances for life, and we need to prepare for the future, and we need to, my parents, put myself and my brother through university, and they made it as easy as possible. Whatever we needed, they would get, and we weren't wealthy by any means. Dad was a truck driver, mum was a cleaner, and so. But they just wanted it to be as easy as possible for us to have what they didn't have growing up in a small village in Greece, which was very poor. And so success for me really is about those key things. It's about family, and I've got an amazing wife who I adore, and I'm amazed that after 25 years she still adores me. We've got two wonderful kids, 21 and 19. The four of us now, we're like just adults living in the one house having a ball, but we respect one another, we just love each other. This is what family is about. So success is family. Success is also living a healthy lifestyle, and eating well. And we Greeks love eating well. Sometimes we eat too well. But also when it comes to the finances, is being on track with financial independence, achieving some sort of independence. So we're not relying on others. We're not relying on the government. But it's important to have, the balance. And so finance is not the be all and end all at all. And it's not our aim at 3P either. Obviously there's KPIs there's goals and objectives that we put in place, but ultimately it's about having an impact, because one day, we won't be around, but no one's going to care how much, money in the bank I passed on with. It'll just be about, well, what impact, did Ziggy leave? And I think that's, for me, if I can do that, then to me that's success.
And I love that. That the success for your grandparents was your parents being able to set up a life and have children and grandchildren here. And similar way for you, it's you've built this financial foundation, but success is around the relationships, the family, and all of that bigger sense of wealth than just purely the financial side.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you were to then, and people watching, because you have got a financial background in terms of the accounting and tax, etc., and the financial planning. So that helps you to then build that financial stability, to then build the focus more on what else around wealth accumulation in terms of people and relationships, etc. What would be a few key things that you might say to others in terms of how they can build that mindset for success financially as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things that I've tried to do in recent years more so than ever before, and it's something that I think I was taught when I was young, but I didn't really do much of it. I think it was just to have quiet time. I think we all need to focus, to be quiet. There is so much noise, be it social media, TV, others. We're forever being texted, and WhatsApp groups, you name it, it's on. So I think that quiet time, whether you do it in the morning or at night or whatever, I think morning's probably a good time to do it. But that quiet time is so important, just to be still. And I think what that does is that creates space for ideas. It creates space for flow. It creates mental space. It creates spiritual space. It just creates space. And I think in this day and age where we're just sort of so, under the pump, under pressure, space is important. The second thing I think that would be to search for your purpose. I think to try to find, and I think everyone can do this. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes programs, sometimes it takes whatever. But to really come to the belief that, okay, well, I believe that I'm here for a purpose, that I have unique gifts and talents. There's not another Ziggy on the planet, nor will there ever be. There's not another Michele. We're all unique. So what is my purpose? What am I doing here? What am I going to do with that? Okay? Because it's all well and good to have those gifts or those talents, but what actually am I going to do with it? I think the third thing is to have some mentors and friends. There's a Greek saying that, and I think we all know it. It's been translated. But, we Greeks like to say that we come up with everything.
The photocopiers.
Yeah, correct. But there's a Greek saying, at least that's what my parents used to say, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And so having mentors and friends who are going to lift you up, are going to be there when you fall, are going to not judge you and not criticize you and not, write you off. These are people that we need to surround ourselves with. And there aren't too many of them, really, and who are there when we need them. Who are going to stand by side, even when the going gets tough, even maybe when there's criticism. So having good friends and people around you, which I'm fortunate to have, but I'm 50 and it's taken a while to find those those friends, because I think as you get older, some friends you let go, don't you? It's sort of intentionally or unintentionally, sort of life changes. So that's I think those three things. So it's quiet time, it's finding your purpose, and having good sort of friends and mentors, I think, is very important.
I think that they're wonderful, that they, again, reflect so much of what I know about you, that that clarity of thought and simplicity around it. For many people, I think when they're thinking about wealth creation or wealth in any sort of sense, that there's still like a lot of noise and a lot of, getting up at 5 a.m. to run a marathon before coming back and meditating with your guru for 10 hours, etc., etc. I love how simply and how succinctly, you've talked about the quiet space. It doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be any of that. It's just taking that quiet time to be with you, the believing in yourself and the whole, looking at who you are and finding your purpose, because everybody has a purpose on the planet. And then the mentors and the third point around having good people around you. There's a lot of famous people that talk about that concept. And I think sometimes people get caught up in thinking that you need to have famous people or large influential people around you. But it's actually, I loved how you put it. It's people that believe in you through the good and the bad times. And it's having those people around you. So you have I talk about them as being like a cheerleading squad. So you have your internal cheerleading, but you also have external cheerleading as well. People that are holding you as you go through life.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm so very thankful. I've got Katina, who's my biggest cheerleader. And she just lifts. She's constantly lifting me up. She's constantly supporting me in whatever I do. And so very fortunate to have my partner, my life partner, who does that, because for so many others, their life partner doesn't. For so many others, people around them don't. But even if you don't have a life partner that does it, there are others that will want to, will be more than happy to fill that role. Just a matter of finding them and to find like-minded people. So they're out there.
And I talk a lot on here about finding the tribe, finding your tribe that resonates with you. And I think that you and I kind of met through a tribe as well, of people that were very positively focused and excited about what they're doing in the world, not just in terms of our businesses, but in terms of our purpose and our passion for being here. But I whether it's somebody that's interested in playing soccer or somebody that's interested in playing chess, I think finding that tribe and then surrounding yourself with people that have that same sort of passion about life, whatever that may be for you, is really, I agree wholeheartedly. It helps to build who you are in your confidence as well.
I think also it's someone who's not going to, obviously not judge you, but not going to be jealous of your successes either. And I've been, in the past, I've been, it's been something that I have done, and I've just tried to say, why am not jealous in the real sort of mean sense, if you like, but it's like, why couldn't that be me? That's still some sort of jealousy, isn't it? And so I think that for people around you, for someone who just says, you know what, I'm so happy for you. That is just, you deserve it. You are worthy. That is quite, it's quite unique to find people like that, but it's important.
It is, and I think you touched on something quite important there, that when people are not necessarily giving you the support maybe that you would like all the time, recognising again that people are human and that you have your foibles, they have their foibles, and it may be that they're just dealing with their own stuff. In fact, it's so funny when I'm coaching people and we're talking about interpersonal stuff, helping them to recognise that maybe the person that they thought didn't like them or didn't this or didn't that wasn't actually thinking about them at all. It's actually too caught up in their own stuff. But for them, it's impacted them that they did this or said this or whatever. And actually, most of the time, it's like you're just saying, there's a little bit of, I'm really happy for you, but God, I wish that was happening for me as well. And so it's not about you, it's about them.
Yes. And you really need someone as well who's not just going to pump you up and lift you up, even for whatever, for even if you're doing something wrong, or if you could do something better, you need someone who's going to tell it like it is. One of my mentors, I told him, many years ago, great friend, mentor, and I said, I give you license to tell me off when you need to correct me when you think I need correction, right? And it's something that I'll listen to, we'll discuss, and then I'll decide ultimately whether I should take that on or not. But the fact that I've given him license to be able to do that, and he does, has been so beneficial. Because at the end of the day, if all people around you do say, "Oh, fantastic, that's great," and you're doing something wrong and they haven't told you, or they haven't said, "Look, I think you could do this better," or "What? Just be very careful about this," then that could end up being just as disastrous.
Yeah, I agree. I interviewed for my book somebody quite influential here in Australia, and he gave us very similar sort of feedback about, you don't necessarily just want yes people around, you want honest people. So that somebody that will tell you like it is, and that is such a value in today. Everything's about image and what you look like, and comparing it to perhaps Instagram images, etc.
Yeah.
You actually need somebody to say to you, you look great for you, or you look shit for you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all still comparing it to you, not to something else.
Yep, for sure. No, it's so true. So true. Those people are needed. Those people are needed because there's so many things that we need to do better. We need to be told.
We do. So I'm just having a quick look there on social media and what people are talking about. And one of the key questions that people are always asking is, if you were to talk to your younger self, and you can be any age, but what sort of advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, wow. Look, I think one key thing would be to accept. If I was going to a younger Ziggy, I would say, Ziggy, just accept yourself. Accept who you are and make who you are the best version possible over your lifetime. I know you're about, be great, be fabulous, be you. And I that is so, when I was younger, I tried to be bits of everyone else because I thought that if I got all the good bits of everyone else, then I would be great. And it was the worst thing I could ever do. And so accept yourself, just be you. I think that would be the starting point. I think the next thing would be, don't be afraid of making mistakes. There was a lot of things that I didn't do because I was afraid I would be wrong, it would be a mistake, or I was embarrassed if it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out. So I think that don't be afraid of making mistakes. I think that if you're making mistakes, not the same mistakes, but if you're making mistakes, then I think you're on the right path. I think another thing would be just don't be a people pleaser. Don't be a people pleaser. I think that thinking of what other people are going to say or think behind you, but you know what? There are always going to be those people, whether you're doing great or whether you're doing badly. They'll always make a comment. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of doing what it is you want to do, just because. Do what you want to do. Not do it just because people are going to say. So don't be a people pleaser. Don't be a peacekeeper, I think, is an important one that I've found. I mean, there's a difference between a peacekeeper and a peacemaker. A peacekeeper tends to just sort of, won't talk about this, don't worry, put it underneath the cup. That doesn't deal with it. Whereas a peacekeeper, I think, comes back to the relationship things, is to say, okay, well, I need to sometimes have the difficult discussion with my wife, with my partner, with my brother, with my friend, right? And so, but what you're doing is you're making peace as a result of having that discussion. If all you do is keeping the peace and not having some of these difficult discussions, then they just fester and sometimes they just, blow up. And I think the last thing would be just to, find your purpose. I think, if I would have liked to start on that journey younger, at a young age. And so just find your purpose. And sometimes that takes years, Michelle. It's not something you can do overnight. I mean, for some people, they find their purpose later in life. You know, you talk about some of the great inventors, these types of guys, they found it later in life. So, you know, it's there's always time, and there's always you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going.
You do. And it's been so amazing and so incredible. Ziggy, how can people, if they want to keep in contact with you or hear more about what you're doing, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I think the best could probably. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, as Ziggy brackets Peter Ziggy, but also they can go to the company website, which is 3pcorp.com.au. So number 3, letter P, corp.com.au. And there's information there. And obviously, they connect with me as well, or they can go to peterziggy.com. That's a little bit of an older website, but it's still got a lot of videos and various things that I've done there, and some free info. So yeah, they can connect with me, there or whatever else.
Fabulous. So lots of ways of connecting with you on LinkedIn, on 3p.com, 3pcorp.com, also on ziggypeter.com as well. So much that we've covered, and I feel like there's such a wealth of information and discussion there. We could talk for many more hours.
We could.
Many different aspects of it, and both being talkers, we could.
Yeah.
Talk. But unfortunately, that's it for another week. And thank you so much, Ziggy, for being my special guest this week.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on. You're doing a great job with these. With these weekly chats, and the great the people that you're getting on and unpacking these type of things. I think it's really needed. Thank you.
That really means a lot to hear it from somebody of your stature, etc. So Ziggy, thank you for this week, and thank you to everybody that's been watching again today. We have run a couple of minutes over, but I think, like myself, you'll have felt like we were covering such wonderful, deep, and really wealth generation on so many different levels today. So thank you to Ziggy, my guest, and I'll see everybody next week. But until then, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.